Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Danger and Crystal Britt. We are so excited to talk to you. How are you, Crystal?
I'm good. I'm a little out of sorts because we're having landscaping and house painting and different things done. So there are people everywhere, and our house is full of windows. So it's really fun. Really fun for me to have to not be at my desk, where I feel oriented and grounded. Should be
And the
fun.
dog, right? The dog is loving it.
My dog, bless him, he is the sweetest, most gentle 70-pound sheepadoodle you've ever met. And also he is God's silliest soldier because he never recognizes the same people that have come to the house every day for like 5 weeks for painting the house. They're always new people to him. And he barks. He is not vicious in any sort of way, but he's a huge dog. So everybody's always like very like rightfully so. But yeah, it gets in my brain through my ear
Mm-hmm.
holes
Mm-hmm.
every day,
Mm-hmm.
all day.
And your kids are home. So that's extra
Yeah.
fun and noisy.
First week of summer break, no childcare because we got a path. The teacher is well-deserved time off, well-deserved. It's necessary to have that cushion. And also, Jesus Christ, like what the fuck? I had a panicked run to the toy store downtown. If you are not on to the Busy Toddlers outdoor toy list, summer toy list to help, she calls it sittervising, to help like facilitate sittervising. I know this is how busy I've been all day. I meant to share this to stories and I haven't yet. She has a list of ultimate outdoor toys. I legitimately took that list and ran down in the hour that I had, took all three kids between 10 and 11 to run, grabbed as many of those as I could find. It was like under $120, and they played outside for my entire 11 o'clock session. Like I was really impressed because they're like, so, Susie, I think is Busy Toddler's name, like is like they're foolproof. Like these are like actual, they'll play by themselves. And I was like, we'll see. And we had like a bubble maker, foam airplanes, and a ribbon dancer and some other stuff. That wasn't all of it, clearly, for $120. Although in this economy, am I right?
Seriously.
But
Well, yeah. Okay. You're going to have to send that to me. I'm going to have to check that out.
Absolutely.
Because
100%.
we are in need of some toys. Some novelty. We need a little bit of novelty in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so for today's episode, we got a caller. We don't always get a caller. And
yeah,
we like those. And we're going to try really hard to actually answer the question that they asked. We're actually going to respond because we
hold
really
on to your
appreciate
butts, you guys. We're really going to try and stay on topic. Really just buckle in. Hang out, see if we can do it.
And I'm going in cold. I have not heard it.
Yes, I listened to this one and was like, oh, this will be really good. Also, if you didn't know, you can leave us messages for us to answer, questions for us to answer on SpeakPipe. So definitely do that. That link is in our show notes. But let me share my screen so we can listen to these. Okay, can you see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hey guys. So I just had my best friend of almost 20 years stay at my house for a week. And just to give you some context, I have a studio apartment. It's super small. And I'm just recently married, about 6 months married to my partner of 7 years. And we have an 8-month-old baby. So it's pretty tight as it is. And my partner, who I believe to be on the spectrum, was super, super, super upset and overstimulated and overwhelmed with my friend staying with us for a week. And yeah, now that I'm saying it out loud, it's like, I get it. And I do feel like, yeah, that shouldn't happen again. But I guess my question is like, how do you deal with the needs of your partner who may be on the spectrum and needing like complete privacy, because that's the value that he told me was being like overstepped was the privacy factor. Like how short is too short, or how long is too long for a visit, and should I be allowed to have. I think my question got cut off, but basically my question is, how do you balance the needs of someone who like is having demand avoidance, I guess, around um like all visitors in the home, with having the other partner be a super social, loves to host kind of person, loves to have family and friends around, wants that like as a value in their life. Like, am I doomed basically that my partner never wants to be around any friends and family? He also moved away from his family to kind of have like a more quiet life. He comes from a really big family. Um, so it's just something I've been struggling with and wanted to hear what your guys' perspectives are on it. Thank you so much.
What do you think, Laura?
There's a lot. It's really interesting to hear the way that this person framed what happened, and like the language. And I think like, I wish that we had a little bit more context, but as we got more information, it did paint a bit clearer of a picture.
Mm-hmm.
I think that most people would have a really hard time like staying in a home with 3 adults and 1 baby in a studio apartment.
Yeah.
And like you hear her being like, "Oh wait, okay, maybe we shouldn't do that again." But the more you listen, at least the more I listened, the more it became clear that it's not necessarily about like, okay, this was a one-off situation that was very stressful, and
Right.
it won't happen again, but appears to be a part of a bigger trend or a bigger issue or a bigger misalignment. And what clicked it for me was the like, we moved away. Did I get that right? We moved
Mm-hmm.
away from family to get a little bit of a quieter, more private life, right?
Yes, that's what I heard too. Yeah, we moved away. My husband has a big family, and we moved away to have a quieter life, is what she said.
And so it's interesting. So like, it I don't know, maybe you're getting something different than me. Maybe you're getting something different than me of how do you deal with 2 people having very maybe contrasting needs?
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
that, I don't
Oh
know. What
yeah.
did you get from it?
Yeah, for sure. I think that like widely overall this is super relatable, especially for like definitely like with the neurodivergent component, like which I'll talk about and address like almost separately, because I feel like that's a special case that has like special things that you have to like pay attention to. But yeah, like having values misalignment, or having uh maybe the things that you thought about your partner that were like attractive or interesting for 7 years, like clearly it's a long-term, like this is a long-term partner, um then in a different context or a different light are like, oh, like is this just like what I have to, like do I have to just like suck it up for the rest of my life and like get used to the fact that like I won't have like, if we won't be the ones hosting this stuff or having people over, because I think that that's especially within marriage and like having a new baby, like those are a lot of life changes in a short period of time. So it can kind of feel like a culture shock to be like, oh wait, am I staring down the barrel of like, however many years of doing this? Which I think it can be like really startling and upsetting of like, oh, this isn't what I
Yeah.
thought I signed up for.
Yeah, especially if in the past it has not been a big deal to have your friend over and just like stay up late and do your thing. I wonder, that's a really good point. Like that is such a massive life transition. And she said they moved. Did she say when they moved?
No, she didn't give a timeline of that, but they've been married for 6 months, together for 7 years, and then the baby is 8 months old. So I would assume like the moving probably happened relatively recent. I would guess within the last like 5 years at least, maybe
Yeah,
sooner.
yeah. That makes sense. So I wonder, let's guess that there was a move away from family and a baby, and maybe like seeing friends in such a close, intimate way, and like staying in the home together. Again, like staying up late, watching TV, like doing meals together, just talk, talk, talk. If that hasn't been a thing for a while,
Mm-hmm.
then I wonder if she was feeling very fulfilled, like it filled her cup when a friend
Mm-hmm.
came, and it just had like the total opposite experience for him. And when you're in that transition phase, it's like you're so raw anyway.
Yeah.
And and it's like rubbing on something. And that's why I thought it was really interesting that she called it like a demand avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Mm-hmm.
and I looked at, okay, so I'm like looking at the actual definition of what PDA is,
Of
or
PDA.
it's
Okay.
pathological demand avoidance, or like another.
Persistent demand for autonomy is how the neuro affirming community or the neurodivergent community refers to it,
Okay.
because of the pathologizing connotation of pathological demand avoidance, making it sound like it's a bad thing is the idea.
Okay.
Persistent demand for autonomy is a strengths-based reframe, but they're the
I
same
like that.
acronym to make it. Yeah, it makes way more sense because it's a trauma response.
Yeah, this is, I want to hear more of what you mean. What do you mean it's a
Yeah.
trauma thing?
Yeah, so PDA is really interesting because it's a characteristic of autism, and it's a characteristic profile of autism, so it's a subtype of autism, subneurotype. But the more that I read and the more that I experience, I also think that there in like the next 5-10 years, I think there's going to be a lot of research-based crossover that they'll find with neurodivergence in general.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the idea of like when you, as a kid, if you don't have the ability to say no, or you're not allowed to say no, right? Or you're not allowed to have control over, like the stereotype is like a kid who like won't let you do anything for them or has a meltdown if you don't give them the right cup. In the past, that's been framed as behavioral. But then if that kid has an autism diagnosis, that could be, they could have a sub neurotype of PDA where it's like, no, that's them not wanting to be forced to, that's them fighting against losing that autonomy. And so they
Mm-hmm.
want, like, they're fighting against that as opposed to what we would categorize as like favorable traits as like fawning, right? That's
Oh,
their
that's
fight.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
This, so when most of us think of demands, maybe we're thinking of like, give me that, do this, do that.
And sometimes
And
kids will do that. Like sometimes that is a way of like, they'll sit on the couch and go, get me water, get me. And you're like, can you say please? And it's like,
that's
okay.
that's worse, right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to communicate with you. So there's like a resistance to being told what to do specifically,
Mhm.
or not getting something right. But there's also this. So I'm just reading.
Yeah.
In addition to more obvious direct demands, there's also indirect and internal demands, including time, like when you need to be somewhere, plans, advanced planning, questions, the expectation of being required to respond to a direct question, decisions, internal bodily demands, thoughts, desires, uncertainty, praise, transitions, expectations, sensory overload, other people's energy and presence, and things we want to do. So it's, I guess I haven't experienced it, but like if I were to filter my own view through this, it's, yeah, not being autonomous. It's like fitting into the rules and expectations. And it doesn't matter if you actually want to do the hobby. It's the fact that like, oh, I signed up for it and now I have, like, now I feel obligated to do this. And it's like that obligation to do it is.
I'll give you a really good example. This is why I can't work a 9 to 5, because the last job I ever applied to before I became self-employed and worked for myself, I wanted the job so badly, interviewed, killed the interview, got the call for the job offer, and was immediately like, I don't want to do that. Like, I was like, I got to show up. I got to be at work at 8 a.m. I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
Right. Like, it's a very, and I'm not saying that I have like a PDA profile. I honestly, I feel like it's such a brand new area of research. Very little people are experts in it yet because it's something that, again, we're seeing a lot in social media. Low demand Amanda is has lived experience as a PDA autist, who is also a parent of PDA kids. She's on Instagram. Erin Rackham is a PhD psychologist who has been on her own journey through trauma and PDA and understanding it. It's fascinating to me because everybody's brain is so unique, and the more we can understand it, the more we can accommodate, and like truly is like a spectrum of neurodiversity. And I think it's incredible. So I just say that with all the caveats of like, I am learning through my own experience and through my own research. But yeah, it can be really frustrating because there's a lot of it, like there can be a lot of internalized shame for people who experience PDA because it's like, why do I do this? Because that's the idea, right? That's the feedback that we get generally from society of like, well, why you wanted that job? Why are you not taking it? And it's like, well, because I don't want the expectation of me to show up for this many number of hours. Like, what if I get there and I hate it? So anyway, yeah, totally. Like this caller could, like, part of that could be PDA, but also if you came to visit and it was me and one of our lowest needs kid and Ben in a studio apartment, I mean, effectively that's like sharing a hotel room. Like that would be a lot. That would be a lot, even if I were extroverted. You know what I mean? Like that would just be a lot of demands and expectations.
Yeah, it is a ton of demands and expectations. And it's also no reprieve. There is no break.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's how I feel when like you said, like you could really love and adore those people and it's still a lot. Like visiting family. We were just, oh my gosh, my husband and Jack and I were just talking about this, about like building closer relationships with people. We were talking about hosting and how it can be really stressful to host because there's like social norms, social order, and responsibilities that you have to follow when people come over. And we were talking about you, and we were talking about Julie and Nora and like a handful of other friends where both of us were just like, when we have friends over, we want them to be at home.
Yeah.
We want you to feel like you can go in the fridge, and if like there's this hypervigilance that happens of like, am I making you comfortable?
Yep.
And knowing, like having an open and trusting relationship with somebody makes that anxiety melt away, where you can be like, are you going to tell me what you need?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
And if like, are we going to be able to have a conversation about it? And I imagine again, like if, oh God, and there's like bodily autonomy that you lose when somebody is in
for sure.
your space.
Yeah. Yep.
It's so much. That's so much for anybody. And if you add on, like
yes. Yeah. And adding in like a small child, right? Like, and like just, here's the thing that I'm wondering too, like you had said, like, I wonder if this is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for both of them of like, okay, like this was the culmination of maybe her feeling isolated, moving away from his family, feeling, having a new baby, maybe she was feeling super isolated. And then this was like her reprieve. And then maybe he's, if they've moved far away, like maybe he also feels disconnected, right? Like this sounds like it was a perfect storm almost. And that totally makes sense. And I also have the lived experience of like having to, I mean, Ben's pretty introverted, but like he's more of an extroverted introvert. And we tend to like flow in opposite situations and seasons too. So sometimes when he's like, do you want to have people over? I'm like, I know. Like, I don't know. I'll be in my room if you need me. But also, like you said, the pressures of like the social obligations of like, okay, do I need, we used to host pool parties for our church all the time. We haven't in the last couple of years since COVID, just because our lives have been really busy, but also because it takes a lot of energy. Like, am I expected to make sure we have all the drinks and the paperware and all of the things. Is that my duty as a host? Also, I don't like guessing those things. So that like
Right.
makes me nuts, right? Like I don't like I don't like not knowing because I don't like missing the expectation. It's almost like I don't like when people are disappointed with me. It's almost like it's a pathological situation. So having that, holding that space is really, it's really difficult. It's also really important, I think, to have like open communication about like what your needs and wants are. And when you have a guest actively at like, say 2 days in, he was like, oh, I can't do this for 5 more days. Like you can't, you're stuck. Like at that point, you just have to like grip your seat and hold on until the visit's over. And that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's that like built up resentment or boiling that happens underneath the surface. And then because you have fully lost your autonomy and you can't even express yourself, you're just,
Yes. Yeah.
that's really tough.
Yeah.
But okay. So the question was, how do you deal with that if you basically have opposing needs? And my thought, my perspective on that would be to boil down what the need is. So like you said, like, okay, she may be feeling very isolated. She may be feeling like she has lost her autonomy, and being able to have a friend over into her space gives her that sense of autonomy. And so I like, I'm just putting myself in her shoes for a second. If that was me, I would want to be like, okay, well, what about having my friend over is really important? Is it that I want to stay up late and like have a lot of fun? Do I want to feel close? Do I want to do the things like the day-to-day living together type of moments? What am I looking for out of her, my friend, coming to stay with us? What need am I trying to get met?
Right.
And then I think that's the battle, though. Like, there's no clean cut way to talk about this. But like, if you're talking to your partner and your partner is like, I don't want, like, if he's going to be like, I don't want to socialize, I want space, I want a quiet life, he needs to then be like, and this is what that means to me. And here is how we make room for your needs. But he needs to communicate that.
Right. In a clear way.
What else? What else?
Yeah,
would you do?
I think each person spending time, like you said, to figure out what the need is that needs to get met. In this case, like I think you and I are on the same page. She needs to figure out like what is the need that you're getting met, what are the expectations, and then coming together as a couple and being like, hey, my friend's gonna visit. I think it's also the other partner knowing his limits, like spending time with himself, knowing where my limits are. What are my, because that's the thing. She said suspected autistic. And so I think if he has not engaged in like learning more about like what autistic traits he does embody, right? You're not going to know if you have physical sensory issues or if you have auditory sensory issues. Like I would recommend like following up with a, primary care doctor or an occupational therapist to take a sensory profile test to see what your sensory needs, what sets you off, right? Tactile is not so much for me as it is auditory. Auditory is my biggest one. So I accommodate that. So him knowing what his needs are will help him to like very clearly and transparently lay out what his needs are so that she can go, okay, cool. So we'll make sure that you have you have your earplugs during that time. We'll make sure that what about quiet hours? Like at camp, if you're in a studio apartment, like that would be really important, right? So like quiet hours are going to be between 10 and 7 or whatever, right? Like it sounds, part of me is like, I have been accused of seeming robotic in my relationship with Ben before on the internet before. It doesn't matter to me as long as it works for you. Like, I don't give a shit, but like have rules written down. So it's like, this is the expectation. And this is what we have both agreed on. So there's not like, well, I never said that, or I never agreed to that, or I never told you that that was what we were going to do. Right. It's like, nope, like we've got it in front of us. Right. So that we both know and can both remember the reason we chose to be partners was so that we could help take care of each other and like be courteous of each other because we value one another. And so that's why we are doing this.
Now, here's the tricky thing. So if you're having a problem with a partner where autonomy is the issue. So it's,
Mhm.
hey, we're in a tiny apartment with a kid and 3 adults, and we're feeling overstimulated and a lack of autonomy. In that circumstance, do you think that having rules and expectations ahead of time, could that backfire?
That's a really good question. I think it could backfire depending upon how much autonomy the person who feels the loss of autonomy, their involvement in creating those expectations, or saying, hey, having enough self-awareness to go, hey, actually, even having rules or guidelines is too much for me. So is too much like demand expectation on me. So actually, I'm going to go stay with my friend for that week. Or like, I'm gonna, you know what I mean? Or like, could
Yeah.
you guys go stay somewhere else for that week? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Or figuring out the small ways, if you can't do that, figuring out the small ways you can reclaim that autonomy, figuring out ways that you can do that while still having to live at home and not being able to leave.
I feel like this is where all of the other aspects of the issue come into play. So, but let's say I want to have my friend over and I want to stay in our one room apartment all together because I need to feel close. I need to feel like I can still hang on to that part of me, whatever it is. My partner feels the opposite. My partner needs space. My partner feels like it's a complete loss of autonomy having somebody else in our home and wants that distance. If he says to me, that's totally fine, we can have this social life, let's hold on to it. I'm going to get out of here. I'm not going to I'm not going to be around. That could feel like you said, like a total betrayal of, oh, okay, so you're saying like you won't participate in this thing that's really important to me. And I think that's where like big picture, if it's going to be sustainable, in my opinion, if it's going to be sustainable, then you do need to take that opportunity to be like, is it worth the $300 for a hotel nearby for my friend to
Right.
come? And I will go sleep over with her and I will sneak back in late at night and I will like, is that what's going to keep our marriage together? So we both feel supported? Or when you say you can't do this with me, does it break my heart so much that this
Yeah.
is always going to feel like a betrayal?
Yes. And I think that's a super great like distinction and like a super great point to make. I think that also comes down to, like you've talked about before, like figuring out what are, I mean, listen, I've said this before on this podcast. We both like are on the same page with this of like, your partner shouldn't be meeting every single need that you have. And like, that should not be the expectation for them to meet every single need that you have. So it may be that he can't participate in, like, say that's the situation. It feels like a betrayal. He's going to go stay somewhere else and she feels betrayed. It has to be a balance of allowing your partner to have that autonomy. Like, so, like that will bring up a big feeling, but the big feeling isn't going to kill you. And engaging in that big feeling and having a discussion of like, hey, I know this may not make any sense to you, but I'm feeling really betrayed. Can we like unpack this in a neutral way? Like, and when I say neutral way, I mean like I don't talk to Ben about things that are going to be really vulnerable and touchy when I'm pissed off, because I can't hold the space. The distress tolerance, it's too much for me. Like, I will be sarcastic, I'll be cutting, I can't do it. So then being like, hey, the last thing I want to do is have this conversation and be vulnerable with you. But I need to like, I'm calmer now and I need to like process this with you. I feel very stupid even admitting that I felt betrayed by this, but I felt betrayed by this. So can we talk about this? Like, I think that this might come from other spaces, but that also requires that partner has the background and the self-awareness to know that it's coming from a different place. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that this sort of thing, it's so funny because it's like, okay, the issue is that, you know, he and I have total different expectations of socializing. How can we both socialize? And like, it has such an opportunity to touch on so many bigger issues.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because it's like, And especially with a baby, with a new baby, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I really like the thing I was thinking about with the baby is like the baby, trying to put a baby to sleep at that age is a nightmare. And like trying to be quiet in a home with a baby with
With
another
3
person.
adults, just like
Yeah.
walking around. Like my kids wouldn't in a hotel room, like fucking forget it. We used to have to like put whoever was a baby in the like in the bathroom with the door open, and everybody else
Yeah.
used to just have to like lay there in the dark.
Yeah.
Or like go somewhere else with the kids while they put the baby to bed. You're trapped.
Yeah. So
And like
I
that
mean, I
thing
was
too,
thinking
right?
about
Of like,
that.
yeah, taking away the autonomy. Yeah.
But then, yeah, the other aspect is that it is this really serious transitional time. And probably all of those big feelings are happening. And those, like, I feel like this happens multiple times when you are a person in the world who exists in the world. There's just like these transition points and these like realignments of this is what I expected it to be. And now this is what it really is. And maybe 8 months in, moving away from home and having made these big decisions, this sort of thing might settle. It might settle. You guys might find
Right.
like a cool flow. And this is a really good opportunity to, yeah, like suss it out. Be like, what made you so upset? Like clearly you were really upset about what happened.
And like when you ask that, like being very specific of like, could you give me examples? Like if it's like, well, my personal space was invaded, because he mentioned, she said that he was stuck on like privacy. I didn't have any privacy. Can you give me a couple of examples? I believe you, right? I always start with that too. If I say, can you give me a couple examples? I say, at first I say, I believe you. I'm not questioning your experience, but could you give me a couple of examples? Because I can't think of, nothing comes to mind for me because I didn't experience it. So can you give me a couple of instances so I can see it? Right. So I can
I
like
love
also
that.
have that experience. Right. Because a lot of times when I say, can you give me examples of that, could be read as accusatory or being
Yes.
sarcastic or like being unfeeling of like, well, prove it. I was like, that's not what I'm
Yes.
saying. I'm actually saying I'm having a hard time relating and I want to relate. Could you give me examples so that I can relate?
I think that's such a good way to put it. I've tried to build that into my own vocabulary where I'm like, I'm asking you a question and I genuinely want to hear the answer. I want to hear you. I'm not asking, like having to clarify.
I have resting bitch face. There's not any way, like, it's just like, I look like I'm, my kids will be like, are you mad? I'm like, no, this is my
Right.
Wednesday face. Why? Like, it's like not. So to being clear, or like my inquisitive voice can also sound like my accusatory, you know what I mean? Like tone,
Right.
again, neurodivergence, my tone doesn't always match what I'm asking. So saying that, hey, I believe you, all of the things.
And maybe even it might even be helpful. I know I do this for myself, is like trying to just like sit with it for an extended period. So like for a week, and paying attention to like when that same feeling comes up where I'm like, oh, like here's something. I hate being at work for a really long time because if I have to use the bathroom, I feel weird about using the bathroom at work. And so that's probably part of, how it feels when I go other places where it's an unfamiliar bathroom. So
it's an away
like,
bathroom situation. I don't like it. It's an away bathroom situation. Yeah.
Or it's like I have to burp and now I can't. I feel like I can't. And
nightmare fuel.
Just like paying attention to all of those
I hadn't
things.
even thought about the bathroom, Laura. I hadn't even thought
Really?
about the bathroom with 3 adults. No, mostly I'm just thinking about what a nightmare that would be with an 8-month-old. So, like I hadn't even thought about the bathroom. Like even with the people that I'm closest to, there's no, I would Alex Mack into the floor. I can't. I don't want you to know that I've pooped. I don't poop.
No.
As far as anyone knows. Do you know what I mean? Like absolutely not. Like I'm the psycho that carries like poopery in a baggie because it leaks, but like in my purse.
They make to-go ones.
That's what I'm saying, but I have to have it I have to have those because it's oil, it leaks. So I have to like
For anyone
awful.
listening,
being a person is terrible.
Tushy has a collapsible to go bidet,
Bidet?
just so you know. It's fantastic. I bring it with me when I travel. But no, exactly. And it's like just that, like losing the ability to be like, oh, I have to run to the bathroom while we're cooking dinner. And you're like, oh God, like now I can't. And then everyone's going to go to bed and it's 8 p.m. and now the baby's going to be quiet. And if I need to use the bathroom, it's going to be
Oh
loud.
my
And
God. And you got to flush the toilet.
And so, yeah, I'm thinking about there are probably so many things. And when your tummy hurts, trying to tolerate any other physical discomfort or tension, like I can absolutely see the way that the tension rises.
Right.
When's the last time
Just build and build and build.
You go on vacation? Having people in your home, like I don't feel that, like I said, like there are certain people I do not feel that intensity with.
I'm flying to Chicago tomorrow, you guys. No big deal.
So funny.
I'm not talking about you, but in general.
Put yourself in his shoes, and it's like your partner's friend coming to visit in the same room in a hotel room with you. Yep. You're in a hotel room now. That's so intense. And yeah, like as an adult, when I travel to see family, like we have that conversation. Are we going to stay in the same place? Are we going to have our own places to just take a mental break, to scroll quietly and not feel like we are being rude to the other person?
Being perceived is fully exhausting. Yeah. Don't perceive me. I need a break from being perceived.
Yeah. And I like what you said is like, maybe it's breaks with the baby, like the partner, like he takes the baby for a full day elsewhere and you two just get to like do your thing at home. Yeah. Or like find ways that you can I want to do a little bit in the house, I want to do a little out of the house. Like how could we get these needs met together?
Yes. Yeah. How can we accommodate both of these needs? And here's the thing, it's also not going to be perfect, like straight away. Like that will take practice. And part of, I think, I don't know if it's like a millennial curse or what, but I'm always like, no, like I'm going to get it right the first try. And if I don't get it right the first try, I should probably just burn the whole thing down. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, well, okay, well, I'm not going to get divorced over this one thing. So but I feel like we tend to catastrophize a little bit more because it's like, well, this is never going to be fixed because we weren't taught growth mindset as children. Because we were just, it was a meritocracy full blown, right? No participation trophies. So like, it's okay and it should be expected that some of those experiments or trials will fail and they won't be good. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be miserable like this one was. You learned a lot from this instance. And now you're asking you're asking great questions, all of the right questions.
Yeah. The other thing about what's interesting, I have caught myself doing this very many times when there's a lack of clarity around the expectations. Having to guess what is expected can be really exhausting. And like, especially in a social situation like that, like maybe part of what was hard for him was that he felt like he had to be more social than was actually expected, or like he was overperforming, where I think that's why clarity helps, where it's like, oh no, you don't need to like participate in every single conversation with us. Like I said, like go take the baby. I'm having a really fun time and it's not going to hurt my feelings if you want to dip. I don't want you to be like cold and shut down. I want you to have a good time too. Right. I don't want you to leave me high and dry with the baby all day and go just like do your thing. So maybe like take the baby with you and I'll have the baby for a while.
Right. But right.
Being able to be balance. Like, oh, because a lot of times you find out like, oh wait, you were doing that because you thought I wanted it? No, I don't want that.
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Or even like being newly married, a lot of times it could be, well, that's how we did it in my family. When we had friends over, or we had people stay with us, I was expected to engage on this kind of level. So like communicating about like, oh, that's a lot. I actually don't expect that of you at all. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point to discuss that beforehand. Oh, hey, Job.
Yeah, that was a really interesting one. Did we kind of answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. How do you accommodate that? How do you work that out when you both have two totally different experiences? You know what? No, I'm just going to say it with my full chest. Yes, we did. And then some. That was great.
Good.
That was a good episode. We nailed it.
Perfect. 10 out of 10. For listeners, we have a Patreon that you can subscribe to. You can do a paid subscription which makes this sustainable, which is so fantastic. We really appreciate it. And it gets you ad free because the platforms that we host on add ads in, which is great. But you can get it ad free on Patreon, or you can just join and hang out with us over there for freezies, right? For freeze.
Oh yeah, for freezies. Absolutely. For freezies and funsies.
But you can comment on these episodes, which that's why we really love the Patreon.
That's what we're trying
one
to
of the
facilitate.
reasons.
Yeah.
Because we should be able to talk about this stuff. Share your experience. What do you think we missed? What would you have told the person who called in? We want to hear from you.
Absolutely. Have you been that person? Like, solidarity and like sharing experiences is always super, super helpful because everybody always thinks it's just them. And it never is.
Nope.
No one's had one unique experience.
No, never.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate you and your support very much.
Yeah. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.